Hello! I wanted to talk a little bit more about how to count while you're playing a song and learning like the note values, the eighth notes, the half notes, the quarter notes, dotted eighth notes, all of those note values is actually like a skill that you can remove from the song and practice alone. So I want to talk to you about how to do that. When you're learning a piece, learning the pitches is just one skill. Learning the fingering is just one skill. Learning the note values, how long each note is just one skill. And if you take each of those apart and separate them, it's going to be a lot less overwhelming to learn, and it'll allow you to really master each part of the learning process. So, how do you do just the rhythm? You take the keys away and you just tap it. So with this song, we have half notes and we have eighth notes. We even have a dotted rhythm with a dotted quarter note and an eighth note. And for a beginning pianist, this is a lot of rhythms that are different that are going on, and it's not a familiar melody. It's not something that you know, like a folk song that you recognize and your ear can tell you exactly how long each note is supposed to be. So you really have to practice how long each note is going to be. So we're going to take the pitches away. We're going to take the A, B, C away. We're going to take the fingers away. I'm not going to use different fingers for each note. We're just going to tap, okay? So find a place to tap. You can tap on your piano. You can tap away from the piano. It's actually really great to remove yourself and go to a table or just tap on your lap or something. Get yourself in just a different place. Will kind of give your brain a different place to think about the music. So here's how we tap this song. So this first line, we're going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and for each of the measures. And an and means the eighth note. So it's adding a little bit to each beat. So the and is in between each beat. We have 1, 2, 3, and in the middle of each beat, there's the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so let's just look at what this is here. This is the Minuet in C by Mozart. And it goes like this. You want to tap along with me? I'm going to count out a full measure before we start tapping, and I will just do the first 2 lines to begin with, okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 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 2 and 3 and. So that was the first 2 lines of the song in the right hand repeated. Okay, so you can practice it like this. Practice just the right hand. Practice counting aloud while you're tapping the rhythm. And that isolates the note values. Just learning the length of the notes and learning when you're supposed to go and when you're supposed to hold without complicating it with the pitches at all. So that'll really help you to master the rhythm. The next step, well, you want to do that through the whole song, so you also want to do the second half of it, right hand alone, and then you want to do left hand alone. So let's go on to left hand alone for the first half of the song. Okay, so the left hand alone is a lot simpler than the right hand. The left hand has just straight quarter notes pretty much. There are a couple of rests, but it's a lot easier. Basically just keeping a nice steady beat with the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 let's repeat that. Ready, set, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's the left hand part of the first half of the song, tapped out. Once you practice each section of the song with hands separately for several days, I would say at least 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 or 6 days, to the point where it's easy and you aren't thinking about it, then you try and put them together. So a lot of repetition will help make this like sort of memorized in your brain. You'll understand it by repeating it a lot. Then after you've practiced it for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days, once you feel like you've really mastered the rhythm with each of your hands, then you want to try tapping them at the same time while you're counting aloud. So again, just little piece of the song. We're adding more and more, but right now we're just focusing on the note values and the rhythm, okay? So I will demonstrate what that looks like for the first half of the song. Okay, so both hands together, left hand over here, right hand over here, and we're tapping the rhythm while counting 1 and 2 and 3 and. You may notice that I accentuate some of those beats with my voice. I say like 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and I give a whole other lesson about that concept. Just observe that. Like it's just a little thing that you can learn about if you want to look at the other lesson about that. But anyway, here we go. So we're going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and we're going to do both hands of the first 2 lines. Just tapping on the fall board, tapping on a table, tapping on your legs, whatever works for you. Okay, ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1. Okay, I messed that up. That's the tricky measure right there. Okay, if you've got a tricky measure, what can you do? Stop and practice it by itself. That's tricky. Let's look at measure 6. Let's stop and practice it by itself because this one is probably the most complicated since you have a dotted rhythm. Okay, so this measure all by itself, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, again, same measure, measure 6. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so your left hand and your right hand at the end are taking turns. Let's do that again. Same measure, measure 6. Ready, set, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so now let's take that chunk, put it into a larger section of the piece. Let's just go back 1 measure, 2 measure, 5. And let's see if we can tap through that second line without messing up in measure 6. Ready, set, go. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and. Okay, that was successful. You might have to do that a lot of times to get it down. So that's how you practice. You practice just the right hand, then just the left hand, then after like a week of that, then put them both together, only tapping, just getting the rhythm down and counting aloud. That's really going to help you to be able to play it. Okay, so can we do that again? And we'll try and get it all the way through so you've got like a little bit of kind of a practice chunk that you can do with me if you'd like. So we are at 9 minutes and 23 seconds if you want to like come back to this and practice it. All right, 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's the first half of the song, tapped out with both hands together. Second half of the song, you'll do the same exact process. So you'll do the right hand by itself for about a week. You'll do the left hand by itself for about a week. And I would recommend that you don't necessarily do the whole song in one sitting, like do half of the song. Maybe do the second half if you want to, but like kind of space it out in your practice, like so you're not doing the entire song all at once. Anyway, it's good to just take little chunks that you can really focus on instead of trying to do all of it, because that gets a little bit much. All right, anyway, so second half of the song, different practice chunk here. Right hand by itself. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's the right hand. If you look really carefully at this song, you might notice something very interesting about the rhythm between the first half and the second half. See if you can figure out what's similar about those two. All right, left hand, starting at measure 8, second half of the song. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's tapping the left hand by itself, second half of the song. Now let's try and put those two together. Just fast forward, imagine that you've practiced this for 6 days in a row, and now you're ready to put the both hands together. Okay, we'll do it a little slower because putting both hands together is harder. So let's slow it down a little bit. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that is how you practice counting aloud. You've got to break it down into bite-sized chunks. You have to make it easy enough that you can achieve it. And you've got to practice with some repetition over and over and over again, one little part at a time until you're ready to put it all together. So I would do this, all of this, for a week or two, just the rhythm. You might also at the same time, or maybe wait till after, but like a separate practice skill would be to learn the fingerings and the pitches. But you don't necessarily have to think so much about how long each note is when you're doing that. You just want to be figuring out which finger should play this note, which finger should play that note, and what is this note, and what is that note. But you're not thinking so much about the rhythm, you're just thinking about how to play all the notes sequentially. That would be another, like, kind of taking pieces out and like separating the different tasks. Just learn the pitches, figure out the fingering, take as much time as you need. After you've done the rhythm by itself, after you've done the fingering and pitches by itself, then you might be ready to put it together. And I would expect this process to take 2 or 3 weeks before it's ready to really integrate everything and be successful. Now, you might feel like that takes forever, but I promise that this is the way to lay the foundation and be successful. Just be patient, take your time, because then it's going to be amazing. So that's a little bit about how to practice, how to count aloud, and I will play it for you here at the end, just so that you can hear the whole thing all together. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and.